Welcome back. This week, the Maryland Department of Natural Resources announced funding for 23 parks and playgrounds across the state, including 4 in Washington County. Jim, what are the plans for funding around the county and the city of Hagerstown?
So there's a number of parks that are going to be funded. In my hometown of Williamsport, Byron Memorial Park is one of those. In the city, Hagerstown, there are some in some of the other municipalities. So it was a total of $2.5 million in grants, and about $370,000 of that will be distributed here in Washington County. So we made out pretty good on this.
I certainly think so. And I haven't seen the actual plans for or what they're planning to do with this, but certainly I think in Williamsport could certainly use the $200,000 investment in Byron Memorial Park. And correct me if I'm wrong, that is the park right outside of downtown going towards the schools, right?
Correct.
Where they had the fire here recently.
Yes.
The pavilion got burnt down. So I think that's probably a good investment. Hagerstown City Park, once they got the alligator out of the lake, can certainly use the investment as well. Although I think a lot of the facilities there are really not in that bad a shape.
The facilities, from my perspective, are in very good shape. They do. The city, in my opinion, does a really good job of maintaining that park. I think that's one of the most beautiful parks in this nation.
I absolutely would agree. So, definitely, I think Boonesboro and Smithsburg, and I'm not entirely sure where Schaefer Park or Veterans Park are, but I mean, it's probably very good for them to get this investment. And, the one thing that I will say for Governor Hogan is that, unlike every other governor in memory, he seems to remember that we actually exist. That's always a good thing.
Well, I guess he does that because of the 23 counties in Baltimore City. He didn't need 3 of the big, he didn't need Baltimore City, Prince George's, and Montgomery counties, so he only needed 21 other counties. He's not going to forget the votes that he got here. So in order to win re-election, he needs to ensure that he stays with his Southern Maryland, his Eastern Shore, and his Western Maryland, Western Shore. He needs those votes. The good thing is, he actually does it. That's what impresses me with Governor Hogan. He doesn't forget the rural areas. And when I can recall, and I'm not going to call out a Democratic governor, I could, but
several, perhaps.
They win the big 3 counties.
And that's all they care about.
What happens to the other 21?
Well, the reality is, if they get the numbers high enough in the big 3 counties, they don't have to win the other 21.
And that's not the way to govern.
No, it's not.
And that's not the way.
Especially when you've got the meandering districts, the congressional districts that are set up. I mean, that's the other piece. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah. I wondered, has this replaced Project Open Space, or is this for putting equipment in parks where open space is for buying new park land? So I'm kind of confused about how this whole project came up.
This speaks specifically to equipment. For example, $200,000 in Byron Memorial Park in Williamsport purchase and installation of a fully inclusive and accessible playground and safety surface suited for children with disabilities. $100,000 to City Park barrier-free playground at the south end of the park. Schaefer Park, $60,000, new playground equipment and replace aging apparatus. Smithsburg, $10,000 for a rock climbing wall, which is kind of cool.
Yes, it is.
And a generation swing, which allows an adult to swing with a child. That's kind of cool too.
Yeah, and that's out of Veterans Park.
Right.
Beautiful park that
it is.
Mayor Myers and the council have installed in Smithsburg.
But I think the way I read it, it is not replacing open space. But
I think the 2 initiatives are different. Honestly, what we're seeing from the state is an investment, I think, in public spaces. So I think that's where a lot of this is coming from. And I'm sure that the initial grants probably came out of the legislature. The distribution to some degree was probably left up to the executive, which has benefited us to some degree. But I think, again, we have, infrastructure has crumbled in the state or in the country as a whole on all levels. Our roads are in really bad shape, not so much here in Maryland as there are in other states. The same thing is true for any sort of public places, and I think playgrounds are a good example of that.
You know, the city of Hagerstown and what they've done at Fairground Park. If you go out to Fairground Park on any given day, the amount of people there with the dog park that they were able to get in, how it all ties in with the walking trail at Fairground Park over into Pangbourne Park.
Into Pangbourne, yep.
And around.
And all the workout equipment, the exercise equipment that's
along the way.
Yep.
And it's just done so much. And for the handicapped, you remember My High years ago.
Right.
There was My High. They started a program of getting equipment for kids that, handicapped kids, disabled kids, all varieties of kids. And I saw the other day in the a picture in the paper of a picnic table that had handicapped accessibility for a wheelchair at a picnic table. Well, my mom years ago always questioned why all the handicapped parking places, why the curb cuts, why different things. And that's when she could walk really well and had 2 good legs. But once you become handicapped and we use a wheelchair to go everywhere, you can appreciate the things that city, county, and state and the feds provide for wheelchair accessibility and for handicapped accessibility. So it's something that in your younger days you don't think about, but later it's there. It's something extremely important.
Well, I'll tell you, I think we're fortunate, and particularly in the city, I think the city of Hagerstown has done an amazing job with providing parks and recreation facilities and other public spaces, as you say, to its citizens. I think in the county, look around the county, everything from Devil's Backbone to Byron to, you name it. There are many, many parks that we're very...
When's the last time you've been to Camp Harding?
Never.
Never. Pectonville. One of the most secluded, beautiful places on the planet where Harvey Firestone and Henry Ford and a couple other people, the president, Warren Harding, where they used to go visit at that park. And some of the things that park has seen historic-wise, you ought to get a chance to go to Camp Harding up in Pectonville someday and see the beautiful stream that runs through it, that you would really be appreciative of. Another park that a lot of people don't know about.
Interesting.
Camp Harding, I'm going to have to keep that in mind.
Yes. Your kids will love it.
Take us out, Ron.
Take us out. Next up on the flip side, our panel weighs in on the future of healthcare in America. Stay tuned.